United States Marine Corps chaplain. And it's something my wife read at my retirement celebration, and it simply says, "It is the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of press. It is the soldier, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer." Speaking about our veterans, it is a special day, one set aside to remind us to think about the sacrifices and services of our veterans, men and women who have valiantly and selflessly devoted, giving themselves towards something greater than themselves, the United States of America. Indeed, this day helps us focus our attention on the key purpose of Veterans Day, a celebration to honor America's veterans for their patriotism, love of country, willingness to serve, and sacrifice for the common good. While the idea of world peace without war sounds great, we have to remember that over the years, our veterans, through countless wars and struggles, have liberated oppressed people, ended genocide, and toppled terrorist regimes. From the Revolutionary War to the current war on terror today, men and women from all walks of life have shared the common bond of their oath to defend this nation, no matter the danger or the enemy. And for this, we owe them a debt of gratitude, not just today, but every day. As we think about this, as we think about giving thanks to our veterans, it's worth a moment to reflect on who our veterans really are. We remember our deceased veterans who have served and have been laid to rest. And we remember our living veterans from World War I to our current conflict. The times may have changed, the warfare may be different, but our soldiers are the same. They're heroes. President Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." This was the guidance of that generation. This was the guidance that they followed. They joined the military, the Peace Corps, and worked for the government. Wars have always caused dissension in our country. We have the freedom to protest. There have been protests to every war since the Revolutionary War. It's fine to protest the war. That is one of our rights as Americans. But you should not be against the individual soldier. He joined the fight for his country and for freedom, but does not choose which wars in which he engages. Soldiers who came home from Vietnam were harassed and hassled by people who protested the war. Yes, sir. Thus, most do not talk about it today, 40 years later. Wars are not started by soldiers. Politicians do that. But the soldiers have to have the resolve to stick it out through all the controversy that revolves around war and end it with a victory for the United States. The soldiers who gave up their lives and bodies for the cause are owed a proper finish to the war, or their lives were wasted in vain. After Vietnam, patriotism fell to an all-time low in the United States, and it became a country where people did not believe in serving their country, but were only interested in what their country could do for them. Amen. A very selfish, self-centered attitude, and our country suffered because of it. It was at this time that the generations of veterans who had given a lifetime of service to our country, both in and out of uniform, started to feel like their services were in vain. During this time, our veterans depended on the support of various organizations, such as the VFW for comfort. And today, I'd like to personally thank and acknowledge the members of the Ladies Auxiliary of VFW for inviting me here to honor these veterans on their day, as a reminder that their sacrifices were in vain. And I'd like to thank you for your continued dedication and unwavering support through various programs and contributions that benefit those of our armed services and their families. You know, it took 9/11 for most people in this country to change their attitude. It was a tragedy that so many people had to die for the citizens of this country to wake up and realize exactly what they had and what they had to lose. I reflect back on my days as a recruiter right after 9/11. This time period helped shape my views and form what the meaning of a veteran is to me. The meaning correlates with my experience as a recruiter. It shows, well, a veteran is tells us being a veteran as someone who had the intestinal fortitude to walk into my recruiting station and sign their life away for the service of their country. The politics behind American military actions are indeed debatable, and the reasons why people join the military are many. But the common thread is sheer courage that it takes to hand over a blank check to our government for the amount of, up to, and including the most valuable thing that a person has, his very life. I remember the feeling of amazement and even being proud to witness firsthand young Americans willing to sign their life over to their country during wartime when the risk was at its greatest. All over this country, people were standing in line to sign those papers and take their oath. While there was no possible way at the time for me to explain what the combat actually was to these people or to these new soldiers, today I can tell you that both the best and the worst of humanity is seen in war. But during this particular time as on my recruit duty, I witnessed patriotism eclipse the feeling of doubt and apprehension towards serving our great nation. They were ready to serve. And today, many of the individuals that I recruited, that I put in the Army, call themselves veterans. Some of them even have 4 or 5 combat tours. After I completed my recruit duty, I was sent back to Germany, where my unit was preparing to deploy to Iraq. Once I got to my unit, I realized that the section that I was in charge of was made up of 7 to 8 18-year-old boys, soldiers with discipline problems, and those that other leaders didn't want to deal with. In other words, my section, they had took, since I was the new guy coming in, the other 2 sections had took the best of the best and left me with the worst of the worst and the unexperienced. But I knew that it was my priority, regardless of what the Army's mission was, regardless of what my unit had in store for me, I knew it was my mission to bring all of these guys home safe. Yeah. And I knew it was going to take a bunch of training and a bunch of praying. So basically what I would do, I would train them all day, and I would be up all night praying. Amen. And we would train until we had everything down. I wanted all my soldiers to know every position, how to do everything in every position that it was. I want them to learn all the equipment. I want them to know how to operate all the radios. I want them to know how to react in every situation. So I took my soldiers, I trained them all day long. We would stop, go to lunch, come back, and we would train some more. And after lunch, in the evening, we would go to the lunch, we'd go get lunch, go to the mess hall, and I had to sit by myself because my soldier was so mad at me. I trained them so hard. But I let them know that it was my mission to bring everybody home safe. And many nights, I sit up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I would find myself outside, pitch dark, with my arms raised to the sky, and I would stand outside, and I would be out there by myself. It's 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, it's pitch dark, and I would have my hand raised. And I would ask God, God, show me the way. Show me how to lead them. Show me how to guide them. Give me leadership ability to make sure that these boys are going to be all right. So, like I said, we kept training, and we kept training until I felt that we were so good that we couldn't make a mistake. I know it's possible to make a mistake, but we wanted to be so trained that it would be almost impossible to make a mistake. And we went out on that first mission. We went out and things started to happen. And everything that happened, my soldiers would react to it. More things started to happen and my soldiers would react to it. As they react, things start happening, they react to it the exact way that it was supposed to be, and went out, we came back, it brought everybody back safe. And once we got back, everybody, you know, we kind of understood it then. It's sorry, I would much rather train hard and be safe and know what to do out there than be unprepared and go out there and get ourselves killed. But the training continued, but my unit became the unit where if something was happening, we were the one that we would get the call. The most important job, or the most dangerous job, were the one that we were going to go. And everybody knew about the surge. And you know about the infantry moving forward to take over certain areas and stuff like that. But what you don't know is that as engineers, before the infantry moved forward in the surge to cover a certain area, the engineer had already went through and cleared the roads, built a training camp, built a training base for them to live. They got running water, they got a place to sleep, they even got internet and all that stuff set up because the engineers went in there and built it. But when you listen to CNN, it's all the infantry that got pushed to the front, and the infantry got there. But when the infantry got there, we already had boundaries and walls and HESCO baskets and everything set up so they would be safe while they, you know, slept at night. The engineers. One of my toughest missions was through Rawa. It was a place up on the Syrian border. They said insurgents were coming in from Syria, and they needed to build a base camp up there, but there was no route. So I went to the meeting, and they said they was trying to pick who was going to do it, and who was going to do this mission. And when they gave the details of the mission, they said, well, mainly it's going to be, you don't have the tactical vehicles, but you're going to have 18 916 and 870 trailers, which is basically 18 18-wheelers. And you got to have 7 to 8 20-ton dump trucks and to haul all the material. So a couple of days later, we set out. We loaded down. We got well digging equipment. We got enough material on the back of the truck to build a small city. We got water purification systems. We got food. We got water blizzards. We got everything a person needs to survive for 45 days in Rawa in that convoy. When we left out, we stayed on the hardball on the road for about 4 hours. Then we turned into the desert. In the desert where the radios don't work, you have no way to determine what direction you're going. You got the old-fashioned compass to determine which way you're going. The only thing you got is your starting point and your end point. And we had to get out just like they did in Vietnam and shoot aspens to make sure we were going in the right direction. About 2 hours into the trip, we didn't see any more buildings. We didn't see any more people. We just going across the middle of the desert. And when we rode in the desert for about 22 straight hours, straight across the desert. We slept in the desert that night, got up the next morning, and started moving. We get about 2 hours out from our end point, and we see artillery start coming. And we start calling it out. Artillery, incoming, incoming, 5,000 meters. Then the next one, incoming, incoming, 4,000 meters. Incoming, incoming, 3,000 meters. So they were walking us down, they was getting close to us because they didn't know we were coming. It was our people, but they didn't know we were coming. So we had to figure out a way to react, and we had smoke grenades and all of that stuff. So we got out, we threw smoke grenades, and smoke went up, and so they figured out that it was us coming, coming in there. So they stopped firing at us. But many nights we spent coming back down the road, running into ambushes, different types of ambushes, and things like that. They came up with some clever ideas. They would use donkeys, put donkeys on the side of the road, and as we would be coming through as a convoy, they would let the donkeys go, hoping that we would stop. And then they would have us in the crossfire or a kill zone. But Armstead wouldn't stop. So when we came through those areas, from the time we left the gate to the time we got to our end point, we had we were running at 65, 70 miles an hour, even with the big trucks. We were rolling to hold, to eliminate the danger. But we would be coming down the roads, and there would be donkeys flying all over here and stuff like that. But we had to do what we had to do to get back. I had one soldier during my first deployment. His name was Sergeant PLC Gomes. And when we was doing all of this training, Gomes used to come to me all the time. He'd say, "Sergeant, why are we doing all this training? We got it, we got it, we got it." And I said, "Well, we're gonna keep on getting it, Gomes. We're gonna keep on getting it until I'm sure that we got it down." And he come to me every day. "We got it, we got it, we got it." So why we keep going through that? But just so happened, we returned back to Germany on January 2006. And at that time, they decided they would move me up to the headquarters, and I would be in charge of all operations that would be going on for our next deployment. We redeployed on October 2007. And by this time, PFC Gomes had made sergeant, and Sergeant Gomes had his own soldiers. And Sergeant Gomes, one day I was in my office, and one of the other soldiers came in, and they said, "Sergeant Armstead, you need to go out here and check this out." So I go outside, and there's Sergeant Gomes out there. He's got his soldiers, and the exact same routines that I was putting him through, he was putting his soldiers through. And Sergeant Gomes was from Wisconsin. And if you would have heard Sergeant Gomes talking, you would have swore he was right here from Sheffield, Alabama. He was using the same expression that I have used from my granddad, my dad, all my coaches at Sheffield, UNA, and everything else. And he was training his soldiers. And near the end of this deployment, it was one of our last missions during the deployment. And I was, like I say, I was in the office, I was in charge of radio and tracking everything. I was in charge of setting the routes that the soldiers would travel when they go out and do these missions and all of that stuff. And we had a simple mission to come up. And this mission was 1 hour out, 1 hour back. I put them on a route that never got hit before. And so they left out that morning, they went out, they did what they had to do, dropped off the supplies and everything, and then they called and say they were on their way back. About 10 minutes after that, I hear all these transmissions coming over the radio. They hadn't got hit. I heard contact right, contact right. And I hear them calling all the signs, telling all the vehicles to move up in position, what position to move up to the 12, this truck move up to the 6, this truck moved to the 3, and this truck moved to the 9 to protect the vehicle that had got hit. And they said, "We got an injured soldier. We got an injury. We're doing first aid." And so I'm listening to the radio, feeling helpless because I know there's nothing I could do. And they calling in for air support, and they calling in for medevac and all of this stuff. And then they come back on the radio and they let me know that it was Sergeant Gomes who had got his legs blown up. Got one of his legs. So I kind of panicked, not panicked, but I fell apart because this was one of my soldiers from the time he was 18 years old. I had watched him, went to his wedding, watched him get married. I could walk out my door and see him getting in his car going to work as I was getting in my car going to work. His wife was a soldier, and she was pregnant with their first child. So I'm thinking, they get this guy to the hospital, and I'm going to get to the hospital, I'm going to go see him, and I'm going to try to convince him not to give up because he lost his leg. I'm going to try to convince him that life is still worth living, and he's got his family, he's suspecting a child and everything, because I didn't know how he was going to react. So I get to the hospital, and by the time I got to the hospital was the next morning, and they had amputated his right leg. And I'm scared to go in the room because I didn't know how he was going to react. So I go in, and he's laying on the bed, and he looked up and he said to me, he said, "Sorry, what's up, sir?" And he take his leg and he wiggle it for me. I said, "Man, I was really worried about you. I thought you was going to be mad at me because I chose the route. And I'm the one talking to you. I talked to you into re-enlisting and all of that stuff. I thought you would be really mad at me." He said, "Sorry." He says, "You ought to be patting yourself on the back." So I said, "Because I took everything that you taught me, and I taught it to my soldiers. And because I taught it to them, when everything happened, they were able to react in a way, perform the first aid, do the things they needed to do to save my life, stop the bleeding and save my life." He said, "So you ought to be patting yourself on the back instead of being down on yourself." So today, Sergeant Gomes will be working with the VA. He's working with veterans who get hurt in Iraq, helping them get their benefits and showing where helping them get medical care and all of that. And every day since that day, Sergeant Gomes has been pretty much my hero. I look up to him because he never gave up, he never stopped fighting, and he proved to me that he was a real soldier, and he was a warrior. I've been asking the Army, why did I stay so long? And today, I guess the best answer that I can give is every soldier, I've never met a soldier or a service member or a former service member who performed his duties or his job with the intent of receiving gratitude or grand gestures of appreciation. Everybody knows the United States needs the military. They need the military to protect their borders. Everybody in the United States enjoys the freedom that goes along with being citizens of the United States. So my question is, shouldn't be why did I stay or why did I serve? It's why wouldn't I serve? So, but it's truly, it's the honor and tradition of serving that continues to attract individuals to do so. It's these values that attract me. It's seen in the faces of everybody who has served. Whether he served on the beaches of Normandy, the jungles of Vietnam, the 38th parallel, the mountains of Afghanistan, or in the Iraqi desert. Honor, pride, tradition was still is a great motivating factor for serving the armed forces. Military service gives us a sense of commitment that lasts a lifetime. Now, as a member of this time-honored corps, I join other veterans in looking back around the globe and proudly surveying the results of our shared sacrifice. Hundreds of emerging and established democracies where citizens now live in freedom, and they owe it all to the soldiers of the United States. As any veteran will tell you, freedom isn't free. For as long as there has been a United States, there have been veterans. Our history is filled with their brave actions and quiet courage. Faced with different challenges, today's veterans are no different than those of our past. The theme of service before self is a constant one that binds our veterans together through the decades. Since before Service before self is why we owe all of our veterans a debt of gratitude, yesterday, today, and forever. On this Veterans Day, let us remember to honor all of those who have served, for they are true heroes.